John Pollock. John Pollock, formerly of the law. Now he's on to bigger and better things, of course. I'm looking for John Pollock. Good morning.
Hello, guys.
Hey, John. David Bastel, Mark Zucchino from RawMikeRichards.com. We're also streaming live on YouTube, on the dedicated YouTube channel from the DKI studios in downtown Toronto, of course. Great to talk to you. John, you're working for Post Wrestling, and catch him on postwrestling.com. Tell me about this venture before we get into some Rumble talk, some XFL talk. It's so good to hear from you. Happy belated New Year, by the way. I know it seems weird talking to you about this in late January, but you and I haven't talked in some time. I hope you're well, friend.
Well, same to both of you. It's great to be on the show. Yeah, Post Wrestling is my new outlet that I launched along with Wei Ting. We moved on from the Fight Network where we were working, and we just launched it on Christmas Eve. And that's where we're doing all of our shows now for MMA, pro wrestling, daily news, and it's been an unbelievable launch over the past month. So it's been a ton of fun, and that's kind of where we're dedicating all our time right now.
And so how does it work for you exactly? Because I know you do a lot of different mixed martial arts. You talk all different sorts of wrestling leagues, not just WWE. Is it still the same sort of aspect of what you've done in the past? Because you definitely specialize in it, and you're my first phone call whenever I need something done that is going to be done by a professional that actually knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the same stuff. We kind of have our network of shows that we've kind of expanded over the last couple of weeks, but kind of our go-to shows that me and Wade do every week. We always have a show up Monday night after Raw, Tuesday after SmackDown. This coming weekend, we'll have post shows after NXT TakeOver and the Royal Rumble, and we've also expanded, utilizing other shows as well. Sometimes we'll go back, we review classic events, breaking news shows as well. So it's kind of our playground right now to just kind of play around and see what people are enjoying. There's always been a heavy news element to all the stuff that we've been doing, so that's always been a critical component of like what we envisioned for this as well. So it's come together really nicely. I think that the audience has followed over. The numbers have just been astounding of what we've launched with. So it's been interesting, and having something of your own, it's a different beast.
Yeah, it really is. You're talking to two guys that have, between Mike and I, and Mike, of course, the genius behind RawMikeRichards.com, of course, and we're having a blast doing it too. So we're glad we're talking to, people in the same sort of boat as ours. So welcome aboard. And postwrestling.com. We'll tweet out the link a little bit later on. And let's talk before we get to Rumble, let's talk a related topic, I guess, the XFL. I kind of laughed, John, a little bit when I heard they're going to do this again, considering that, the demos in the States right now and across North America say kids are not playing as much football because of the danger of the sport. The XFL has failed in the past. Now they have more competition than they ever have before, and they still have competition with leagues like the two arena leagues, the NFL, of course, all the college stuff, the CFL. Can the XFL actually do it correctly this time, as opposed to what we saw last year in its last time, I should say, in its 1 year existence?
I think that even the most optimistic fans that followed the XFL, and more importantly, the XFL's business plan, would have enormous trepidation following Vince McMahon's announcement on Thursday. To me, this was asked during the press conference, and there was, among many topics that there weren't any definitive answers regarding, is going to be the distribution deal that the XFL can acquire out there. If there's a broadcast deal out for them that can pay them an enormous amount, we know what sports rights go for right now. I don't think the XFL is going to be in line for one of those larger networks that is going to want to be able to fill their schedule with XFL football. If they can land one of those deals, that's a game changer for them. But I feel that is going to be quite the Hail Mary for them to land. And just looking at the startup costs that we're aware of, that Vince McMahon cashed in just about $100 million worth of stock. Like, just looking at the logistics of this, it's that there's going to be a lot more that needs to go into this, and there's no promise that this is going to have a different fate than the first iteration of the XFL did.
Hey, John, two questions for you, just to pick up on that, because obviously there's going to need to be some TV revenue here. But is there part of this a fallback position, or does the audience translate at all to the WWE Network in terms of I need content, I need to attract more subscribers to that network, and maybe a part of my schedule of the XFL, my football audience might do that for me? And the second part of this starts to reek a little political for me. The fact that you can't have a record to play in the league. Is this Vince McMahon just trying to do his best Edge impersonation and be an opportunist and jump in when there's a portion of the U.S. who is angry at the NFL?
Yeah, no, great question. So the first one about kind of looking at the WWE Network, I mean, that was a clear theme in the press conference of this line in the sand that Vince McMahon, chairman and CEO of the WWE, this has nothing to do with the WWE, even though this was blasted across all of the WWE's media outlets on Thursday. I think that it's impossible to separate the two when you're looking at all of this. The fact that the WWE is going to be negotiating their domestic television rights package this year, while this kind of side project that is technically another company is also going to be seeking out a television deal. Now, the WWE Network, it's had good success, but it's not at a level where if you were to take Raw or SmackDown and put them on the network, this would significantly handicap this company, because you would be giving up, like, their television rights. That is the biggest revenue generator for the WWE. If you take out the USA Network deal, that's a major blow to their overall finances, because you would have to make up all of that in added subscribers to the network, which I don't think is realistic. Putting the XFL onto the WWE Network, I think that you're going to have to go back to the first XFL, where week one was huge, and then we saw it just plummet week after week. Are those fans going to be willing to subscribe to a network for $10 a month for this? I mean, the hardest part was getting them to tune in for free. Yeah. So I think that's a really tough go to try and imagine that people are going to pay for this product, on top of the fact that you're going to have to convince them that this is football worthy of your time after the NFL, after college football, after the CFL. Like, what is the quality of play going to be? And then just dovetailing into the whole political nature, I think the second Vince McMahon started to explain this is not about politics, but then essentially said that everyone will have to stand for the anthem, you've immediately made this political. And I don't think you can take that no matter what your intentions are. So I think that was certainly a theme that came out of the press conference, that whether they want it to be or not, this is going to be political in nature, and this is going to be launching during an election year, that it's going to be a war zone at this time, that I feel football is going to be very much part of the political narrative 2 years from now.
Very interesting. We're in conversation with John Pollock from postwrestling.com. Check it out. It's a fantastic site, and we're really happy to talk to John. Wrapping up the XFL portion of this interview, does Toronto legitimately have an opportunity or a chance? Would Vince McMahon consider a team in the Toronto-based area for his brand new league, or is it strictly going to be USA all the way?
I mean, my gut would be that it's going to be contained in the U.S., if for nothing more than that you could have a television package that would be attractive, that would be all domestic rights in the U.S. I don't know. I don't think that you would also want to come into Canada, where you'd be going into markets. Like, they specifically said they were somewhat vague about staying away from markets that already have an NFL franchise in it. Now, the Toronto Argonauts are not an NFL franchise, and you could argue there's a bit of, Toronto could be a battleground for a football franchise, but I would be very surprised if they would go outside of the U.S. I see this going to pockets of the U.S. that at least have the infrastructure for it, and then also which would be craving football at that time of the year.
John, I just want to switch gears with you because Monster Wrestling fan, and this weekend officially kicks off the road to WrestleMania at the Rumble. And I was just curious from your standpoint, because I'm hearing a bunch of names being thrown around. And, before we started broadcasting this morning, I was talking to Dave about potential of Shinsuke Nakamura walking out of the Rumble and headlining WrestleMania with AJ Styles. I know Vince McMahon hates to use the term wrestling. It's sports entertainment. But with what Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho did in New Japan Wrestling, do you think that the WWE is under any pressure at all to put a match like that on the card that is for a wrestling purist, a Nakamura versus AJ Styles main event, one of what will be 3 or 4 main events?
Yeah, I don't think that the WWE feels a pressure to deliver that. I feel that their NXT product, I think, very much is a response to that product and to service that fan base that for a lot of times feels they don't get out of the main roster. And you've seen the track record with NXT, and I think catering more to just a traditional professional wrestling perspective and just, simple angles, talented workers that they brought from all parts of all over the world. I think that every fan is looking at AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura as a match that they would like to see at WrestleMania, and I think it puts Nakamura in a position that it's a possibility for the Royal Rumble on Sunday. And with AJ Styles, I think that's a ready-made opponent for him. They've had the match before. I think you can certainly tell that story over the next few months, and it would be very beneficial for Nakamura, who his main roster run has been underwhelming at this point, and he hasn't been able to have kind of that backstory told and have the opponent that he can go out and have that big match with. So from just a selfish point of view, I think that would be the direction that they should go in with for both of their WrestleMania programs.
John, if we're connecting the dots and what we saw on Raw 25 this past week with Roman Reigns dropping the Intercontinental title to The Miz, does this mean that Roman Reigns goes over at Rumble and Roman Reigns gets jammed down our throat as the guy that's going to get the push into a WrestleMania main event, and Roman Reigns is going to win a title, and Mark and I are going to go, beat each other up because we hate the Roman Reigns push number 17 in the last 17 chances? Is he going to be jammed down our throats one more time?
Well, I could be kind and give you all these alternatives, which are always
But we're right? Is that what you're saying? We're right?
I think that what you laid out is probably, that's kind of the path that they've laid out for this year.
That is so disappointing. That is so what Marky go.
I'm just curious, just to piggyback that, John, what happened to the days of the crowd, the audience putting guys over versus the office picking to put a guy over? And what do you think the odds are of us seeing Daniel Bryan cleared before WrestleMania or at any point with the WWE? And, because I hear his contract might be expiring this year, and if that's the case, they won't clear him. He might be elsewhere.
His contract is up in September. I would say the odds of him being cleared are extremely minuscule. I know that there's a lot of optimism that he's going to make this miraculous recovery. And the WWE has stated they have not changed their decision on all of this. However, they certainly haven't they've shined a giant light on this by building him on SmackDown, that just the casual observer would look at this, that this is building to a match for this guy. So they have teased this on television, but I really don't think you're going to see a reversal of the diagnosis that they gave. For those not aware, Daniel Bryan has sought a second opinion elsewhere, and they have given him the go-ahead. They think he is cleared and he can go, but WWE's chief medical physician is not comfortable clearing him. And for the WWE to go against that recommendation, it just opens them up for so much if there was, knock on wood, some awful issue that happened with Daniel Bryan down the road. So I just don't think that in this era of the WWE, 10 years ago, this guy is in the Royal Rumble. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
It's just a more conservative approach. And I can't say I disagree with them that if they have their own diagnosis that they're taking the safer option here with Bryan. So I don't expect him wrestling on Sunday or at WrestleMania, and probably ever again in the WWE.
Interesting. Final question from us, and thanks again for joining us, John. It's John Pollock from Post Wrestling here on RawMikeRichards.com. The Undertaker on I guess Raw 25. He comes out. He does his promo. Doesn't really say much. Doesn't really move that well. We've seen that before with him.
I'm still confused from the promo.
I am too, because I thought this would be a nice little setup to, I'm coming back and I'm gonna beat up somebody would come down for a run-in. There doesn't seem to be a direct path of who The Undertaker may or may not be facing. Are we going to see The Undertaker at WrestleMania, or have we truly seen the last of him? Because they hint at it. There's been rumors all over the net. You guys have talked about it before on postwrestling.com, but what can you say right now as we go into the Rumble weekend?
Well, I think it'll probably be Raw 50 by the time we can figure out what that promo was.
Thank you. At least we're not alone. At least we're not alone.
It was an awful show on Monday when you had your biggest number in over 3 years, like an enormous audience. And I just thought it was so squandered. And The Undertaker being one of many, when you have such a big platform to shoot a key angle for WrestleMania in front of the largest audience, like that's a layup. And it was totally missed on Monday. I do expect The Undertaker to work WrestleMania. I don't think I think that he's significantly lost that aura over the last number of years. And the fact that you went off the air at WrestleMania last year with like the symbolic retirement. I mean, it wasn't stated, but it was like that was the closing scene of WrestleMania. And yes, you can bring him back, and yes, he'll get a pop at WrestleMania, and you can do a match with him. But I feel it's lost a lot of the importance that he brought to his one match a year up until a couple of years ago. So I expect him to do the match. I think that John Cena is the opponent for this year, and I'm very surprised they didn't do anything hinting in that direction this past month.
Yeah, us too. But many questions were lost on that Raw 25. John, always great talking to you. Enjoy the Rumble weekend, and we will continue to enjoy your work on postwrestling.com. Thanks for doing this today.
Very much appreciate it, guys. Thanks very much, and anytime. Love chatting with you.
John Pollock from postwrestling.com. That's your go-to for anything wrestling related, and always good talking to him.
What? We just become best friends? Yep.